All right, let's dive in. We're about to pull back the curtain on the single most important piece of software you use every single day, but you probably never even think about it. And that is, of course, the operating system.
So let me ask you a question. Just think for a second. When you pick up your phone, what's the most important piece of software on it? Is it Instagram? Is it your web browser? What's the one thing that makes everything else work?
Well, here's a hint. It's not any of your apps. No, the real answer is something way more fundamental. It's the invisible foundation that every single app is built on top of. It's the ghost in the machine making it all possible.
To really get this, let's start with the device we all know best. Yeah, the one that's probably in your pocket or sitting right next to you right now.
You know these names, right? iOS, Android. Maybe you even remember the days of BlackBerry or Windows Phone. These mobile operating systems, they are the master conductors of your phone's orchestra. They manage literally everything, from the camera to the touchscreen, the Wi-Fi, the processor, and they create that smooth, seamless stage where all your apps get to perform.
But it's this constant, tricky balancing act. On the one hand, these systems are amazing. They have these beautiful, user-friendly interfaces and access to millions of apps. But on the other hand, they're in a nonstop battle against battery drain and security threats. And if you're on Android, you've got this extra challenge called fragmentation. That's just a fancy word for the massive headache of making sure an app runs just as well on a Samsung as it does on a Google Pixel or any of the thousands of other devices out there.
Okay, so that makes sense for our phones. But what happens when the stakes are way, way higher? I'm talking about systems where a delay of just a millisecond could be, well, a disaster. Think about a factory robot arm or a life-saving medical scanner. Those things need a totally different kind of brain. And that brings us to this really fascinating, specialized world, the real-time operating system. You might see it called an RTOS. This is the OS you bring in when there is absolutely zero room for error.
And just looking at this, you can immediately tell we are not in Kansas anymore. This structure is lean, it's direct, it's not bloated with all the extra stuff you'd find on your phone. See, it's not built for scrolling through social media, it's purpose-built for one thing and one thing only, doing its job with perfect timing and rock-solid reliability.
And here's the absolute key: timing. An RTOS doesn't just try to be fast, it guarantees a response within a very specific window of time. For something like a medical imaging system, immediately isn't just a nice-to-have, it's a non-negotiable, hard requirement.
So how does it pull this off? Well, an RTOS is obsessive. It's designed from the ground up to be error-free. It squeezes every last drop of performance out of the hardware, and, importantly, it only focuses on a handful of critical tasks at a time. That's how it guarantees reliability. It's the ultimate specialist, running complex algorithms to make sure it hits the mark every single time.
So, if the OS is the boss, who's actually doing the work? It's time to pop the hood and look at its essential toolkit, these little unsung heroes we call system programs. Yeah, you can think of the operating system like a master architect, but the architect doesn't swing the hammer or lay the bricks. For that, it relies on a whole crew of specialists, its system programs. Each one has a very specific job to help manage and control the whole operation.
First up, you have to let the software talk to the hardware. You ever plug in a new mouse and it just works? How? That's a device driver. It's basically a translator program that lets your OS, which speaks software, have a conversation with your printer, which speaks hardware. Without drivers, your keyboard would just be a useless piece of plastic.
Okay, so now your OS can talk to your hard drive, but what does it do with all that space? Well, that's where file management comes in. These system programs are like the super organized librarians of your computer. They create, label, and shelve every single photo, document, and song so you can actually find it again. And what happens when you want to use one of those files? You know, when you double-click an app icon. A system program called a loader wakes up. Its whole job is to go grab that program from storage, carry it over to the computer's active memory, and basically say, okay, you're up, go. It's what brings your software to life. And finally, once your program is up and running, you're probably going to want to connect to the outside world, right? Sending an email, browsing a website, downloading a file. All of that is handled by communication programs. They're the ones managing the invisible wires that connect your computer to the billions of others out there.
So we've seen what an OS does now, but how on earth do we get here? It's been an absolutely incredible journey, and you can really break it down into 4 distinct generations.
I mean, just look at this timeline. We started out with computers that filled entire rooms, run by glowing hot vacuum tubes.
Then things got a little smaller with transistors and something called batch systems, where you just feed the computer a stack of jobs to do one by one. The third generation gave us integrated circuits, and that led to multi-programming, which was a huge deal. The computer could finally juggle more than one task at a time. And then came the fourth generation, the personal computer. And, well, that changed everything.
This quote really just blows my mind. In the very beginning, there was no operating system. There was no Windows, no Mac OS. If you were a programmer, you had to speak the machine's native language, ones and zeros. Can you even imagine the patience that took? And that's the real story here. It wasn't one magical invention. It was this slow, brilliant climb. Every time the hardware got better, from vacuum tubes to silicon chips, it created a need for a smarter, more powerful OS to manage it. And that step-by-step evolution is what took us from computers the size of a building to the supercomputers we now hold in the palm of our hands. So when you think about it, the history of the operating system is really the history of what we can do with technology. It's been the unseen engine driving the modern world, which really makes you wonder, if this is what the first 4 generations gave us, what in the world is the 5th generation going to unlock?